Good afternoon. I'm
Oh,
Dennis
wait.
Galucki. Whoops.
Oh,
And
wait.
welcome,
Oh, there we
welcome to the 522nd Imagine Buffalo program and our 144th Imagine Greater Buffalo YouTube program, hosted by our wonderful Buffalo and Erie County Public Library. Thank you for joining us today. This program is created by the Center for the Study of Art, Architecture, History, and Nature, or C-SAAHN, as I pronounce the acronym, and ImagineLifelongLearning.com. Now, before we get started, just a little housekeeping. Everyone watching will be muted and your video turned off. If you have a question or comment, please type it into the chat box and we'll go through them at the end of the presentation. Now, we are recording this program so you can watch it again later on the Downtown Central Library's Facebook page and YouTube channels. And please, we hope you share the link with others. Now, on to our featured speaker. We have different themes with C-SAAHN. The first Tuesday of every month is around the arts and creativity. The second around architecture and design. This is the third Tuesday of the month, and it's around history and future. So we look back so we can look forward. And our speaker today will help us a great deal. Bren Price is one of the founding members and currently vice president of the Buffalo Presidential Center, a retired educator, lifelong collector of political memorabilia, a master docent with Explore Buffalo, and a volunteer with Visit Buffalo Niagara. He loves to tell presidential stories and promote the Buffalo Presidential Center, a very unique organization located right downtown on the second floor of our beloved Buffalo and Erie County Public Library, the downtown branch. So welcome, Bren. Let's hear an update on the center.
Oh, thank you very much, Dennis. You know, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to talk to the public about the Buffalo Presidential Center. One of the first things that I mention when I'm doing a presentation is something that a lot of people think would just be out of this world. Just how can you say that? But in his book, Dead Presidents, Brady Carlson said, Buffalo has the richest presidential history of any city in the United States outside of Washington, D.C. And we're here to prove that. And I'm really glad you're with us. I know many of you have already heard about the Buffalo Presidential Center, and I know you've heard about maybe seen our programs and seen our exhibits in the museum here in the Downtown Central Library. In fact, I know many of you have even saw the promo on the Fox network during the Bills and Dallas game last month. Wasn't that special? It certainly was to us. Obviously, in 15 seconds, you don't get a chance to tell much of the story, but we certainly did get a lot of hits on our website as a result of that. Like who would really know that we gave more than 20 public programs in the community in 2023, and we welcomed about 900 visitors into our museum. And not only that, we featured 4 special exhibits, including ones for President and Mrs. Jimmy Carter, Abraham Lincoln. We had that great exhibit on Jack Kemp, the football champion and public servant. And most recently, we've had an exhibit on White House Christmas with Christmas ornaments. Not only that, we were featured on Channel 7 WIVB-TV in an interview with me and Buffalo historian Lindsay Lauren Visser about the life of Belva Lockwood. And it was actually taped right in the Buffalo Presidential Center if you didn't see it. So, okay, you can go to the screen. So here's our motto for 24. Let's do more in 24. So how does a small, all-volunteer 501c3 organization improve on what I just described? We have a very ambitious mission, which is let's do more in 24. And here's what we have in mind. Next screen. First of all, we want to increase the awareness of our unique presidential history, and we do it in several ways. We want to broaden our we want to broaden our community engagement in Western New York. We want to broaden our engagement in the library branches and right in our own space. And on the left in this image, you see John Fagin. That was a standing room only crowd because he gave a program in November about the Kennedy assassination and whether or not that was a conspiracy. And it was a great program. And then we also invite a lot of groups to come in and see us for a private tour. And on the right, there's a small group, a social group that has come in to get a private tour within the museum. And so we've done a bunch of those this year. And we would love to invite you to invite a social group that you may be a part of, or a book club, or a church group, or even we've had a scouting group come in to learn more about our presidential history. So there you get an idea of what they are. Okay, next. On the left, you see a couple of young ladies who came in the museum last year. And when they first came in, they looked kind of interested. And I said, would you like to take our quiz? Because we have a 10-question quiz that would be challenging for everybody, but all the answers can be found on the wall boards right in our museum. And so these young ladies were very persistent. They hung around for about an hour, and when they got done, they had 9 out of 10. And so I gave them a Buffalo Presidential Center pin back. So they were very happy with that. And then on the right, I mentioned before that we have done many, and we want to do more next year, presentations about the Buffalo Presidential Center in the library system, in our branches. And on the right, you see me talking about Buffalo presidential history at the Clarence Library. And that was back in November. And we hope to continue to do a lot more of those. And speaking of students, next frame, we have a goal to involve more students and teachers in the programming and the understanding of Buffalo's rich presidential history. In fact, this Saturday, the 20th, we're going to have a couple of hundred middle school students from the Buffalo public schools coming into the Buffalo Presidential Center. Actually, they're going to be in the library, and they're going to be doing visits to the various spots in the library that would be of interest. And they will be coming into the Buffalo Presidential Center. And so we want to do more and more of this. Next frame. Another thing we have in mind is that we know that there are a number of people from Buffalo and Western New York who have had an impact in one way or another, or a connection to, in one way or another, the presidency and national affairs. We've already identified 20 people who the names may be very unfamiliar to you, but they cover all demographics, and it goes back all the way to Red Jacket. And so we want to focus on those people with special exhibits and special storyboards. And we're really looking forward to designing that to explain those Western New Yorkers who have connections to the presidency. Next screen. Yes, this is really important. You know, for a small not-for-profit, we love being in the library, but you know, there's still costs involved in order to continue to spread the word, and we really seek to obtain more operating and capital funding from a minimum of one new foundation. We do have some outside sources. Mostly, however, we depend on donations, and we depend on memberships to the Buffalo Presidential Center. But we are looking for some more capital funding from a minimum of one new foundation this year. Okay, next frame, yes. Oh, here's one of the things that we're planning to do, and that is a redesign of our whole museum space. You know, we have a wide, broad inventory of artifacts from Francis Folsom Cleveland and Grover Cleveland, right within our museum and basically in our storage area. So what we want to do is to focus on the Clevelands by creating a Cleveland corner that focuses on their legacy. And it's pretty wild, you know, when you really think about it. So many stories, you know, some of them true, some of them not so. On the left, we have a beautiful image of the historical marker that is in front of Francis Folsom Cleveland's house on Edward Street. I think it's 162 on Edward Street, and that was designed by our former, the late Mark Evans, who was a Francis Folsom Cleveland expert, and funded by the city of Buffalo. And so if you get by the Francis Folsom Cleveland house on Edward Street, stop and take a look at that. Over on the right, we have some campaign items in reference to the Grover Cleveland's inauguration, his first term. And we have so many artifacts in our collection, and we want to share them with everybody. And so we're gonna have a lot of display area with the recreation of this Cleveland corner, and we're hoping that as we develop this and redesign it, that we're going to be able to get some support from you and the public for the costs that will go into this. Next. Okay. This is going to be, I think, the highlight of the coming year. With a lot of media attention, we are in the process of erecting, and we will be dedicating, an Abraham Lincoln historical marker at the corner of Main and Eagle. You know, that is to be the M&T Towers block, to commemorate Lincoln's funeral, which was held in St. James Hall in Buffalo on April 27th, 1865. You know, that was 9 days after the mock funeral that they had in Buffalo for Abraham Lincoln on April 19th. And this is such an important event, and it's an incredible site. And there's been a lot of talk about doing something like this, recognizing Lincoln and the importance of his 4 visits to Buffalo, the last one being on April 27th. And so we are inviting the public to pencil this date in on your calendars, so that you can come and see the witness the erection and the dedication of this Abraham Lincoln historical marker. We've been working on this for some time. There's a lot of paperwork that goes along with this, but we hope that you'll be with us on this. Kind of coming to close here, and I just want to say that we believe that the Buffalo Presidential Center is really a museum gem that's just yet another museum digit, if you will, on all of the not-for-profits, the historical not-for-profits that are in Buffalo. And we need to tell, we need to grow, we need to continue to tell the stories of Buffalo's rich presidential history. So we really solicit your assistance in any way to help us with this effort. We need new volunteers. We need new board members. We need new supporters like you. We hope that you will reach out to us either via our website, which is listed here, buffalopresidentialcenter.org, and let us know of your interest, or stop in. You know, with the exception of last Saturday and holidays, the Buffalo Presidential Center is open on Saturdays from 10 until 4. So we've had a great year in 23, which was better than 22, and certainly better than the pandemic years of 20 and 21. But we have all kinds of plans for the future, and we hope that you're going to join us in really promoting the Buffalo Presidential Center in 24 and forward. So I'll entertain that to some questions.
And Bren, that was a fine summary. Thank you. Folks, this is your chance to submit some questions. Let's challenge Bren a little bit and say, give us a little more depth to two things. A, that marker that you're creating around the Abraham Lincoln site, and the April 27th event that was there, but the clarity also, because the words made it sound like there was a funeral service there, and I'm not sure that clarify that a bit, for me and the audience, perhaps.
Sure. Happy to do that. On April 27th, 1865, his funeral train came into downtown Buffalo, and they got off at Exchange Street Station, and there was the funeral cortege, or the funeral carriage, had a tour around the city, the downtown part of the city. They started at Exchange Street, went down Main to what was then a full-scale eagle, down to Niagara Square. And then from Niagara Square, they went up Delaware to Tupper. And then the procession went from Tupper to Main and down Main Street, and his carriage stopped right in front of what was then St. James Hall. St. James Hall stood on the block, which is now M&T Plaza. And at that point, about 9 o'clock in the morning, his casket was carried into St. James Hall, and it was placed there. And at 10 o'clock, it opened to the public. And between 10 o'clock and 8 p.m., somewhere between 80 and 100,000 people walked by his coffin. And it was an open casket. Now, mind you, this is 15 days, almost 12, 13 days that his body had been dead. They actually had 3 embalmers on that funeral train. So it was not easy to keep a body fresh. And so as the people walked by, all you could hear, according to the reports that I've read, all that you could hear was the whispering of security people, the shuffling of feet, and the weeping as they passed his body. And so it was And actually, as they went around town, there were hundreds of thousands of people, all the buildings draped in black. It was a huge event. He was here probably longer than in any other city. And so it is a big event honoring our 16th president. And I hope that's enough information that you want for starters. So we felt, as many have in the past, that we needed to honor Lincoln in Buffalo by coming up with a plaque that would be erected on the site where his body lay in state.
And the honoring tour that was made, did that replicate in any way when he was alive and came to Buffalo en route to Washington after winning the election?
Well, the inaugural train stopped in 10 cities, or 13 cities in 10 days, 10 days and 13 cities. I always get that mixed up. But the inaugural train did stop in Buffalo, and he was here to greet thousands and thousands of people. In fact, there was very poor security, and his bodyguards and a lot of people were injured when he tried to get off the train at the Exchange Street station. So, I mean, he was here, and as he rode around town and stopped at the American House Hotel where he stayed, he did manage to greet an awful lot of people. So that was a huge event. And then the next day, he actually went to church with Millard Fillmore and had, I don't think they called it brunch in the day, but they had a big meal at the Fillmore Mansion in Niagara Square. And then he got out earlier the next morning because the security was really bad when he got here, and they improved upon that, and they wanted to get him out an hour earlier so that they wouldn't have as much of a problem.
All right. Well, Melissa, how are we doing for questions?
We do have a few questions.
Good.
So first of all, what are some of the things that people could see displayed at the Presidential Center?
Well, we tell the stories of the 5 presidents that are most notable, and that's the Fillmore and Cleveland, who were residents of Buffalo, McKinley, who was assassinated here, Theodore Roosevelt, who was inaugurated here, and Abraham Lincoln, who was here 4 times in life and death. So we tell not only their stories, but also the stories of our first ladies and the stories of the women who were first, Belva Lockwood and Shirley Chisholm, who were presidential candidates in their day. So and then we have special exhibits every couple of months. And so we encourage people to come in and take a look. I hope that's enough information to answer that question.
And are those exhibits, for adults? Can kids find something to
Yes, children.
wonder at?
Oh, you saw a couple of middle school girls in the PowerPoint, and the young children in particular love to try to find the answers to those questions. So we invite children in, and even the little toddlers, we have a little coloring desk and a place where they can keep busy while their parents and family look around. So we do encourage that. Yes, I mean, it's for everybody.
And how did you specifically get involved with the Presidential Center?
Well, when I retired from teaching and moved into Buffalo, in the Buffalo area, I was always a lifetime collector and historian of presidents. And so it made sense. Before the Buffalo Presidential Center was created, was envisioned and started, I did a little bit of volunteer work with the Theodore Roosevelt inaugural site. So it's always been in my blood, and it's a passion that I have, and I love to tell all these stories and share this. Even though I'm not a native of Buffalo, I'm here now, and I'm dug in, except in the winter.
Can't say I blame you there. We do have a few more questions. One is, what is a mock funeral 9 days prior?
A mock funeral is one without the body. They did have a carriage that was a procession of a carriage went all around town. They had speakers, live speakers all day long. It was like a 12-hour event. And then later in the evening, they found out that the funeral train was going to follow the same as the inaugural train on the way back, and that was going to be stopping in Buffalo. They didn't know that until that night. So the mock funeral is that there was no body there, but they still had a commemoration of his death.
Just a fact here that someone put in my chat. St. James Hall was, at the time of the Lincoln funeral, owned by the precursor to our library, the Young Men's Association. So
Yes.
a fun fact.
And I think I know who put that in there.
Another question, referencing the recent presidential era from 2015, 2016 to present day. In light of that, what discussions have you had with your board about how you might talk about Buffalo's connections to this most recent presidential era?
We do from time to time have programs and events and even exhibits about the more modern presidents. But we really do focus on those presidents who have a connection to Buffalo. A lot of them don't. Like some people said, well, why don't you have something on Mrs. Clinton? And the answer is that she wasn't president. Otherwise, we would probably do something. She was a presidential candidate. I don't know whether that fully answers the question. We do tend to focus on the past, but we are with our We the People initiative, we hope to cover some of those people who are lesser known, who weren't candidates, but who did make some contributions.
Another just note, I may be pronouncing the name wrong, so I apologize. John Meacham issued a major new biography of Lincoln in 2023. He is coming to Chautauqua to speak in June. If he knew about the new Lincoln event in Buffalo, perhaps he could be enticed to include a visit to Buffalo. Just a thought. And just the last
I'm making a note of that. When?
It says he's coming to Chautauqua to speak in June.
In June.
Yes.
That would probably be the last week of June.
Last week of June.
Probably.
And then just our last question, can you cite some little known examples that contribute to Buffalo having, quote, the richest presidential history outside of DC?
I don't have all the names in front of me. I do have a Word document with that information. I'm trying to remember some of the people, and obviously some of them I'm not even familiar with yet. Some of the more familiar names, I remember I thought about Red Jacket. I just can't think of any more right now. But stay tuned. Stay tuned for that. You still have you there?
Yep, you're all set.
Okay.
Bren, that quote, I've seen that and heard it, and I've thought the same things. Let's if that's true, we are famous for being second only to Chicago for architecture and telling the architecture story, and we're people have stated that. But the president second only to Washington when you think of Virginia and you think of Ohio had a lot. I'm sure there's a lot of others who might think that they have something, but what we do have are two museums dedicated to presidents. That strikes me as fairly unique. if you could find another city with 2 museums dedicated to presidents, that may be a starting point, and you're part of that equation. How do you collaborate with the TR site is what I'm leading to too, so that we broaden and tell that presidential story as to the nation, basically.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and we do love to collaborate with the TR site, and we do, and the History Museum and others. But to your point about, we're talking about cities, not states. And we have 2 presidential candidates from Buffalo. We have 2 vice presidential candidates from the area. Some of you remember Bill Miller from Lockport and from 64, and also Jack Kemp in 88 or 96, excuse me. We have 2 women candidates. We have Buffalo's own born first lady. We have, of course, Lincoln, who we talked about, and then McKinley, who was assassinated here, and Roosevelt, who was inaugurated here. And aside from that, 140 visits by 36 presidents before, during, and after their presidency. We were and have been a center of political activity. And that's part of the reason why Brady Carlson mentioned that quote.
Good. One last point. You mentioned Jack Kemp. You had an exhibit in the fall and speakers, I recall. What do you have any remnant of that exhibit, or is it still up even?
The exhibit was replaced in December for a White House Christmas display. We still have all of the exhibit remaining, and we would love to share that and talk about that at any of the branches, in any of the library branches.
What was the highlight of the exhibit in your estimate? Why should people make it a point to make that connection of Jack Kemp, given football season as it is, with your presidential center?
Well, you carry over from the only champion quarterback. So you carry over somebody from sports with an incredible career in sports to an incredible 9-term congressman who was a public servant. So Jack covers, more than one area of excellence. And so that's why we like to tell his story.
Well, it's there to be seen. I'm glad to hear that remnants of that exhibit are there on permanent display. That's helpful. And again, folks, this is a free space supported only by donations and goodwill of people and all these good volunteers that make this community work, and certainly individually make organizations like yours work. The Buffalo Presidential Center, 2nd floor of the downtown library.
Yeah.
Open.
One other thing, Dennis, we still do have some Jack Kemp memorabilia, some storyboards, and a big banner on display in the Presidential Center.
Good. Well, then another reason to go. As I say, we're in the deepest part of football season, so why not make that connection and enjoy the uniqueness of that. Not too many other NFL players can connect with the Presidential Center, I don't think. So Bren, nicely done. I encourage everybody to support this great organization. It's an example of the library expanding beyond being a building with books. It certainly has many other things going on, including the Buffalo Presidential Center. Thanks, Bren. And folks, thank you for joining us. We have next week, as many of you know, April 8th is rapidly approaching. Why is that important? Buffalo will be a highlight city for the total solar eclipse. And next Tuesday, we'll be having Mark Percy, who is the founder of the Buffalo Eclipse Consortium, And he will be telling you much about the eclipse, but equally important, how Buffalo is preparing to fully embrace that eclipse and enjoy it and welcome the rest of the country that might be coming here to follow that eclipse. So it'll be an interesting time. We'll have one more program in late March, but this will get us an overview here in January. So join us next week for Mark Percy. I'm Dennis Galucki. Be well and good day.
You here?